ladies and gentlemen, welcome back to the Excellency Mid-League Analyst Desk. My name is Mac Dewey, and still in the booth with me is none other than my main man, Icarus. Death Cards Academy are up 2-0 over Divine Ascension Obsidian, heading into the draft for game number 3. A lot of familiar faces to start us off.
Yeah, we're still going to be seeing the Bard. We're going to see the Zyra. This time around, we're finally going to see that Diana ban coming
there
in.
We
so
go.
Not allowing Sterling Archer to get his hands on that one more time. This is the game that I think is going to be the most defining for me out of this series between DCA and DAO. And it's going to come down to the fact that we haven't seen Death Cards Academy win a 3-0 series yet. And we've seen a couple of reasons why so far throughout these past couple of series. Their team fighting in particular, they're not always grouped as 5. So I think if DAO can draft themselves a composition that's going to punish weak 5v5 fighting, that they might be able to pick up a win.
Saturation. Locking, not saturation. It's definitely Sterling Jones, my bad, ladies and gentlemen. I'm going to pull up, let's see if that Xin Zhao pick, is something that we've seen on the Rift from him offline, off the stream. It's a Karma paired up with the Xin Zhao as well. Icarus, what are your thoughts on this Karma pick coming through? Where do you think that's going to end up?
Actually do not know where that Karma pick is going to go. It's a really tough champion to place down and a very strong flex pick. I don't like to see the Sejuani being picked up right off the bat here for Divine Ascension Obsidian, though. It kind of destroys the purpose of first picking this Nautilus for B1. Right. You've revealed your hand. You show that it's not going to be a Nautilus jungle. Instead, it is going to be a Sejuani jungle, so almost guarantees this Nautilus is going support. However, Vayne being locked in here for Divine Ascension Obsidian is quite the takeaway and a spicy pick.
Risky. After being in the top lane for Divine Ascension Obsidian through the first 4 weeks of the season, once again, he's going copycat, stealing Galaki Meep's pick. In game number 1, it was Galaki who went with the Kai'Sa, and then we saw Risky take it away in game number 2. Now the game 2 pick for the Death Cards ADC is picked up by the Divine Ascension Obsidian ADC just right after into the next game. Really interesting. We see Galaki Icarus. He's going back to the Kai'Sa pick. We saw this matchup kind of unfold just a little bit in game number 2. How do you feel about this, I think, skill matchup between the 2-star ADCs in the series?
It really depends on what gets locked in here for support on the side of Death Cards Academy. If it's the likes of an Alistar or a Leona, what I'm hoping DCA locks in here, then I think it's a pretty decent matchup both sides, and it will be more skill than it was in the last game of the series, because we did see that alongside the Kai'Sa, we saw the Rel, which is a very reactionary style champion. If we see something that's more aggressive, more engaged style, like the Pike here, this is a spicy lane now, because this means that we have execute potential. We have the ability to really shut down this Vayne at level 6 and prevent all those tumble shenanigans that everybody loves to see.
Right, the tumble shenanigans, and not only that, a little bit of gank setup for Sterling Archer, something we've seen the Death Cards Academy jungler absolutely excel with through these first 2 games. Icarus, you're looking a little funny on that screen, and I agree with you 100%. What are you doing is not only the namesake, but one good question for the top laner of Divine Ascension Obsidian, locking in the Garen? Question mark?
Question mark is a great way to end that statement. It's a blind pick Garen here in the top lane, and I'm not entirely sure how I feel about it, because it can have some pretty rough matchups depending on what DCA decides to lock in here. More importantly, though, there can be some pretty good matchups for Fugnuggler, who gets the final pick, and I'm so happy to see him lock in something that is looking to scale here. Garen can be oppressive pre-level 6, yes, but he only really gets kill potential once he has access to that ultimate. But by then, Kayle can also have level 6, get access to the Transcendence, and really just start to range harass and shut down this pick for what are you doing. And it's also going to provide the extra damage that we desperately needed to see coming in from Death Cards Academy here versus just the sheer tankiness that the Divine Ascension Obsidian has drafted for themselves.
And Fug Nuggler, the top laner we've seen pop off, getting solo kills on tank champions. He managed to pull it off with Ignite Shen in game number 2. He was popping off. He had the unsealed spellbook. Ornn was catching what are you doing a little off guard in game number 1. The boss in chat is very excited about the Divine Ascension substitute getting his hands on the Garen. So am I, to maybe see this pop off. Whenever I see it locked in, all right, hear me out, Icarus. Whether it's like a weird split push strategy, whether it just maybe catches Death Cards Academy off guard, I think it could be a little bit of the necessary spice the Obsidian squad needs to really mix things up. Getting into the client draft, we actually see Fug Nuggler. He's sticking to his more supportive team role, and it could be Patrick actually getting his hands on the kill for mid lane.
That would be a very interesting matchup here, actually. When you're facing off versus a Malzahar, it's not going to be the most, again, not another lane where you're going to get a whole lot of kill pressure coming in there, especially considering that Malzahar just wants to shove in wave after wave and only really has kill pressure either through a gank, which he isn't going to get much assistance from a Sejuani in terms of killing, or when he gets access to that ultimate once again here. So whether it goes on to Patrick Jones or Fug Nuggler here will be spicy, because either way, it's a pretty free scaling option here. Something I do want to point out really quickly, though. I went back and I was checking the games for Divine Ascension Obsidian. Yeah. In their wins versus the Generous Reform, they had a killer performance coming in from the bottom lane here. Now, we do have a different AD carry this time around, but if there's ever a game for a Vayne to pop off, it's one like this, where you have 3 tanky frontline members and a Malzahar all playing the keep Vayne alive composition.
Risky is gonna have his work cut out for him against the Death Cards composition. A lot of sustain. The invulnerability from Patrick is gonna be huge to try to play around, and he's also got to work really, really hard to just stay alive in these fights. Ooh, for Cthulhu, I wonder if he's actually played this Pyke a little bit. No, some other members of the Death Cards squad, Patrick Jones on the Xin Zhao, actually defeat on the champ. Oh no, Sterling on the Xin Zhao had a defeat on it earlier. Patrick, first time Kayle in the mid lane for him this season. We'll have to see if he's able to show off a little bit on this champion. Void on the Malzahar, something he's a little more comfortable with on the champion of choice for game number 3. Icarus, he's going to be looking to pop off a little bit, maybe look to get some picks before the Kayle invulnerability even comes out.
Yeah, it's really going to come, this game is really going to come down to the late game, and we have to give a shout out to our sponsors over at AM Coffee. We're going to need a cup of coffee for this game, because I think if there's a game that's going to go long and it's a game that's going to be back and forth that you guys don't want to miss, it's going to be this one. You got Vayne, you got Kayle, you got Kai'Sa, Pyke, all these champions that you love to see in the late games, team fights, pop-up performances, potential everywhere. I can't be more excited about this bottom lane matchup. I want to see how this Vayne plays when it's been given over to Risky, who I've been informed is Lexar, just with a name change. I knew this, I just forgot for a second, but it's the man himself that popped off versus Degenerates Reform. He had a 23-4 Kai'Sa game in the last game of that series. Like, he knows how to play these short range AD carries, and I'm so excited to see what he's going to be able to do on what is Galaxy's champion.
Do want to point out Icarus, for Cthulhu on the Pyke, 4-1 on the champion. One of his signature picks, 3.68 KDA through 5 games. Looking to have another carry performance on the Pyke support against Divine Ascension Obsidian. Again, Death Cards Academy looking for some consistency. Are they going to finally switch up their coffee flavor for game number 3 and look to clutch this one out? Well, it's all going to be left on the rift between these two teams. Buckle up, our 2 longest game time squads. Head on to the servers for one final final game to finish us off for the mid-league week 5 action. Once again, Cam and Gunjan are waiting for us, ready, fueled up with the grind coffee. Don't click out of that browser. We'll be back in just a bit.
Welcome back, everyone. We are here for our final game tonight. We are here with Game 3 with Divine Ascension Obsidian on our blue side tonight and Death Cards Academy on our red side. Death Cards is currently sitting 2-0 in this series against Divine Ascension Obsidian, and it does look like Obsidian will potentially be looking for a level 1 fight today.
Yeah, I wanted to talk about the draft, but it looks like Divine Ascension Obsidian are already looking for some violence in the early game, stacking in this bot side bush, and Kaisa might just get caught out.
Kaisa is not expecting it. That is going to be the flash already coming out from Galaxy, and Nautilus didn't even have to burn his own flash, so that's just a flash for free.
Yeah, they get the free Kaisa Flash, and I think it's going to be really important because right now, just looking at the lane states as well as the mid and bot lane setup, it feels like Death Guard's Academy has finally kind of gotten a little bit outdrafted, and their mid and bot side are incredibly weak, especially in the early game.
Yeah, they really are. And I mean, Death Cards, they're going to have a hard time early game, especially with this Kayle and this Kaisa Pike in the bot lane. Kayle obviously is not going to be much of a champion until level 11, but she is going to be very much of a champion, level 16, with her most recent buffs.
Yeah, she got buffs to her range. She got extra 50 range. Also, one of the big changes was they also made it so that her waves that she gets when she hits level 16 now also apply Muramana. So Muramana has become kind of a prominent item on Kayle, including with the Nashor's Tooth and with the item is the mythic item that is completely blanking on me, but we'll remember it as she builds it. But yeah, Kayle has become a really strong pick, especially if you go into that late game hyper carry fantasy. The big fear is that, especially around that level 6 mark, with the Malzahar lockdown, with the Sejuani lockdown, she could just get picked off and not ever get to that late game fantasy that all Kayles wish for.
Yeah, I mean, that's just the hard part about playing Kayle, right? Pre-level 11, you're really not much of a champion. And then level 11 to 16, you're a little bit of a champion. And then 16 and on, you're just absolutely huge, especially with the buffs now. And I mean, we might see a little bit of a play in this bot side as Divine Ascension's bot lane is hitting level 2 first, but it doesn't look like any of the hooks will land. And I just want to talk about how Water has taken Ignite this game, and he has actually taken a different second summoner spell every game tonight.
Water finally said, I don't want to get solo killed anymore. I'm gonna take the combat summoner and just try to force something in that top lane. And hopefully, Water is prominent on this Garen pick. It is his most played champ in solo queue. So this is something that he's incredibly comfortable on. And you can see now, as we were talking about kind of the jungle matchups, or even mentioning them, Malzahar has the push on the kill and is looking to roam into that Xin Zhao jungle, but doesn't look like they'll be able to find anything. And again, both of the first two games, especially in the early game, has been kind of the tale of two junglers, Cam. And I kind of want you to talk about how these jungle matchups in game number 3 with the Sejuani and Xin Zhao will interact, especially in the early game, and what they're going to be looking forward to.
I do definitely like that Divine Ascension finally banned that Diana away from Sterling Archer, so he is going to be on that Xin Zhao instead of the Diana, where Xin Zhao is still definitely a very early game focused jungler. He's not nearly as early game as he was a season or two ago, though, so he is going to have a lot of presence, especially in these mid-game team fights, if he is able to find that early game lead that you need to find on these early game champions. And I mean, this is going to be the Ignite coming out from just joshing onto Cthulhu over this bot lane scuttle, which Saturation is actually able to pick up both the top and the bot lane scuttle. He's also going to be flashing on this Kayle, trying to find that early gank kill, but it's not going to happen, finding absolutely no summoner spells out of her or her jungler.
And that was incredibly aggressive by Saturation to try to make a play there. But you can see kind of the strength of the lanes coming through. Double scuttle for the side of Saturation. And finally, it feels like Divine Ascension and Obsidian have some control in the early game. It feels like now they finally picked lanes that can try to contest in these early scuttle fights. And Sterling Archer finally doesn't pick up a huge gold lead in the early game from just kind of cycling the camps with that Diana ban coming through.
Yeah, but I mean, Xin Zhao as a champion does still clear very fast. As like I was saying, he is that early game jungler. He's just not nearly as centered around the early game as a Diana, as typically Diana does like to farm until 6 just to get that really powerful team fight ultimate, just so that her kills and ganks are way more efficient. But Fognuggler, once again, doing so much damage in these top lane trades, even though he is on this Enchanter Karma pick.
Yeah, it feels like Fug's just looking for a solo kill already, but he's not going to get it this time, thankfully, for the side of Water. He's just going to be able to hold it through. And in terms of just the lane states that we are in right now, for the side of Death Guard's Academy, obviously they have picked weaker lanes in the mid and bot side. And now with the vision control that they've established with the control in the river, they've kind of been able to spot out, especially wherever Fug goes. But it looks like there's going to be a gank down bot.
Be Flash coming out from Josh joshing, finding that hook onto Cthulhu, but Cthulhu is playing Pike. It is so hard to gank a Pike as he does just get to press his W key and kills away. But Patrick Jones is going to TP from behind, TP coming down as well from Void, trying to find this counter gank here. Just joshing, a little bit caught out, but he is able to hook himself out. Void still trying to go forward, still trying to do damage, and so far no kills have gone out yet. Sterling has arrived at this fight just to hit one ability and walk back down up the river.
TP for TP burned, and again, you can see kind of the anticipation from both of these bot lanes, and these teams kind of just ready for any sort of engage to happen down bot. They should know that it looks like nobody left, and so they're just gonna look for another play.
We are coming back here. That is another hook landing onto the Pike, even though he was stealthed. This is actually TP coming down from Fugnuggler now. He's gonna be coming down onto this Karma. It does not get canceled, and that's gonna be first blood going over to Sterling on the Xin Zhao. Now they're trying to find the second kill. Saturation going down. Already a double kill for Xin Zhao, trying to find this third kill, but it's not gonna go over to the Xin Zhao. It will be Fugnuggler picking up that third kill.
And remember, Cam, how I said that Divine Ascension Obsidian had finally secured some foothold in the early game? Well, there it goes, because they didn't have TP on water. They utilized the TP from Fugnuggler to just come down, throw down his mantra Q, and he just turned that team fight completely. Divine Ascension Obsidian just being a little bit too over aggressive. They could have just pathed to try to get that early dragon, but they wanted to make a kill. And the big kind of key member in that team fight that we didn't really get to talk about was Ooh for Cthulhu. He just landed hook after hook after hook, keeping Divine Ascension Obsidian just locked into that team fight. They're able to pick up the 3 kills. They're able to pick up the dragon. And now with the 1.6k gold lead, it feels like, again, we are in a time loop where Death Cards Academy has a lead in the early game and the first dragon.
Yeah, I mean, Cthulhu really played that fight so well. He ate 2 or 3 hooks, I believe, from the Nautilus, and just because they couldn't kill him, that made the Nautilus useless in the fight in the end, and that ended up giving 2 kills over to Sterling, as we are going to have this 1v1 in favor of Water in the top lane, as he is trying to run down Fugnuggler, but it is so hard to run down a Karma. She is just so fast with her mantra E there, and she is going to land that nice route onto Water, and this is just going to be so hard to find a kill, but Saturation is here trying to find anything, and that's finally going to be Fug's flash burn, and that's just going to be about it from them.
They end up burning Fug's flash, but it's kind of a head-scratching play because Water hasn't reset at the moment, so he didn't have the items to try to make that play happen. If Water's sitting on maybe the double longsword and a boots, maybe he can just get in there and try to get the damage off, but it was a really head-scratching play from the side of Divine Ascension Obsidian. Again, it feels like they kind of fall into these desperation traps where they're like, we kind of have to try to get something going in the other side of the map after they lose that big early team fight. And again, they don't come up heads, they don't pass go, they don't collect $200, and now Sterling Archer is just getting control of the jungle again.
Yeah, he was just able to yoink that blue buff away from Saturation just right under his nose, and we're going to have a little bit of a bot lane fight. That hook just barely going wide from Risky. If that hook did land, that would have very easily been a kill, as Risky is sitting here, still level 5 on this Vayne.
And while I'm kind of talking about dread and desperation, there are places for Divine Ascension Obsidian to make plays, especially around this mid lane. Now that Void has picked up that Malzahar ulti, now that Saturation has that Sejuani ulti, they can look for a play around mid, but it looks like Saturation is going to be pathing bot side to try to make something happen, and Nautilus ulti's up.
Nautilus ulti is going to be going down onto that Kaisa, as well as the very nice ult from Sejuani. That's going to be almost a hook landing onto Cthulhu, and that is just going to be 1 kill. Very nice going over to Risky. That is their first kill for Divine Ascension Obsidian.
And great pickup for the side of Divine Ascension Obsidian, and good play to try to punish the bot lane of Death Cards Academy for just playing a little bit too aggressive. Again, there's going to be a play around top, but Water should just be able to get out. And now, advantage to the side of Divine Ascension Obsidian because they're able to make the play down bot. This bot lane Pike pick, again, it is a signature pick for the side of Ooh for Cthulhu, but it is still incredibly squishy, and in these big CC lock team fights, Pike jumps in and he just gets CC, so he can't really be as effective as he really wants to be, and in a lot of these situations, they can just lock him down or lock down Galagi and just make it so that it's pretty much uninteractable in these 2v2 and 3v3 skirmishes.
It does definitely come down to a lot of skill on these hook champions, specifically the Pike, really, just because if he is able to not get CC'd and he is able to find the really strong execute ultimate, finding that extra gold for his team is going to be really strong, as that's not something that Nautilus can really do, as he does have way easier CC to land in these
could
fights.
Get caught out.
But Galaki is going to be a little bit caught out in this bot lane, trying to solo push the wave, but he is able to ult away using his flash as well. That is going to be the Sejuani ult landing, though. He's trying to find any damage that he can, but it's not going to be enough. Risky able to pick up that kill, as Aloof for Cthulhu was able to run away.
And as an 80 carry main that has Challenger Vision Score, you can look my my mobilytic stats up. That's kind of a head-scratching play from Galaxy. He has double wards. He doesn't have any control. You can see that the bot side river vision is completely favored for the side of Divine Ascension Obsidian, and he just pushed up a way too far. Gets punished for it from the side of Saturation, and I like that again. Even though they end up overcommitting in the bot lane and they ended up falling far behind, they're not kind of down for the count. They know that their bot lane is still strong. They know that they have a lot of lockdown and a lot of CC, so they're still trying to be aggressive in the early game and still trying to make plays, because again, you still have that Monka W Kale mid lane where, again, when she hits that level 16 mark, it feels like it's gonna be over, because there's a lot of short range characters on the side of Divine Ascension Obsidian, and that Kale with that 650 range is gonna just wreak havoc.
Yeah, that Kale, especially with this Karma, and this Karma has already finished her Shurelya's, but no Karma talk today. Galaxy is again caught out in the spot lane, but Saturation only lands his ult and is able to walk away barely with his life. Sterling Archer trying to find the kill. He's just about able to TP coming down from Fognuggler onto this bot lane play, and I mean, just joshing is so caught out. There's no damage coming out from the side of Divine Ascension Obsidian. Sterling Archer finding yet another kill on the Xin Zhao pick. Once again, 4-0-1 in the early game.
And they were there for the play. Divine Ascension Obsidian, again, got a good Sejuani ulti onto the side of Galaxy, but there was no damage there to follow up. He just went a little bit too over-aggressive. He went a little bit too quickly, and great picker from the side of Death Guard's Academy. They pick up the second dragon. It is going to be a Cloud Soul, so again, not the most impactful dragon, but again, it feels like we are in a time loop. I feel like I'm an Echo ultimate, an Echo clone just waiting for 4 seconds, because again, in game number 3, 2 dragons picked up for the side of Death Guard's Academy, and in that 23-minute mark, there is going to be a Cloud Soul point if Death Guard's Academy can kind of hold their lead.
Yeah, Sterling Archer has really been playing this early game so well. He's had a CS lead in the early game in all 3 games so far. This game is probably the smallest CS lead that he's had, but it's still enough to make his 4-0 even stronger than it already is. He has found these early 2 dragons, as you were saying, and it does look like they are going to be able to take this early Cloud Soul, as it was the same soul it was the last game, but it's still very, very strong, especially for this Kale and Kaisa.
And they are just going to drop the Rift Herald mid to try to funnel some more gold into the Kale, but bot lane looks like another play.
Risky is caught out, just about dodges that ult coming out from Cthulhu, but Galaxy trying to flash forward, not enough damage from his Q though. He is almost gonna go down. That's his own kill going over to Saturation, just joshing, trying to find his own kill onto Cthulhu. His hook is almost just about to be up. That is gonna be the flash coming out just as well, but Cthulhu is so good at this spike, he's gonna find the return kill onto just joshing.
What an outplay from for Cthulhu to just turn it around. They end up trading 1-for-1, and that pickup onto just joshing is going to make it so that they can't try to commit and try to get more plates onto this Vayne. Great play by for Cthulhu to just kind of individually outplay the 3-man of Divine Ascension Obsidian.
Yeah, I mean, Cthulhu's really been playing this Pyke so well this game. Pyke is a really hard champion to play, especially in competitive, just because of how much he lacks CC if you don't land his hook, right? So far, he hasn't been landing a lot of hooks, but that doesn't mean he's been playing badly by any means, as he's taking so many hooks from just joshing that his ADC would otherwise tank, and he's not going to die the hook. So it's just going to still be useful.
Yeah, and Cthulhu, you said it, he's been playing incredibly well, but the man in the middle, the person I want to talk about is Patrick Jones, because, again, no actions really happen around mid lane. We haven't seen that kind of play that I set up, which was the Sejuani into the Malzahar ulti onto Kale, and she's just free scaling. She's sitting on her Nashor's Tooth. She's about to hit level 11, and it gets scarier and scarier because you're not shutting down this Kale. You don't have a massive gold lead either, and so now, as this game is progressing further and further, this Kale becomes that big late game win condition, and it gets incredibly scary for the side of Divine Ascension Obsidian.
It definitely does. She's still sitting at level 10 right here, so she's not going to be level 11 if they do find a fight, which it does look like they are going to find an engage onto Sterling, but he does still have the ultimate, making him not take any damage, and again, Ubu Cthulhu finding another hook onto just joshing and another kill for his team.
Yeah, he's going to pick it up, and it looks like they're just going to, again, get ready for Dragon, but
Lands the flash hook, he gets the death from below, and that's so clean from Ubu Cthulhu.
Oh, for Cthulhu picks up the bot lane play again and again, but it looks like Water is going to be able to pick up that top lane. Outer tower Fug did end up having to back up. He wasn't able to join into that bot lane play either. So again, first tower traded for the 2 kills, but again, it looks like they can just make another play onto the Malzahar, and he's dead.
Void is dead before you are even able to finish your sentence there. That is another kill going over to Galaki. Actually, his first kill on this Kai'Sa.
They pick up the first kill. They pick up their first kill onto the Kai'Sa, but the big man in the middle, I want to keep harping on it. Patrick picks up the solo gold onto that tower. He picks up all that farm. Nobody was contesting him, and it gets scary. We are at level 11. There should be alarm horns. There should be blaring sounds in the headsets of Divine Ascension Obsidian, because Kayla is level 11, and she's coming to take your base.
Yeah, and Cthulhu landing another hook onto saturation there, but unfortunately Kale does not get her range bonus there at level 11. She was not close enough to land any extra damage onto him, and Cthulhu looks like he might be caught out here, but it is just so hard to catch a Pike out, as he does still have the E and the W available.
And you know what the great thing about this game is, Cam? That we're going to see a fight in about 28 seconds, because Cloud Dragon is up. This will set up the soul point for the side of Death Card's Academy, but they're just going to look for a play right before.
The hook landing onto Fugnuggler, and that's also going to be the death from below coming out as well, but there was no follow-up, as just Joshing unfortunately burns both of his most important spells there, and that's just going to be both of them burned, like you said, before this fight happening, in around 4 seconds before this dragon out. So far, it does look like Death Cards is just going to have all the bot lane river control and is just able to secure this 3rd dragon for themselves, as it does look like Divine Assumption is going to trade this for that 2nd Rift Herald.
And I like the idea from Divine Ascension Obsidian. They just wanted to preempt the play by trying to look for a pick with that Nautilus flash hook into the ultimate, try to get something there. Fug was able to flash away, and now they're just going to kind of give over the 3rd dragon, say, we will try to fight you on 4th. We will try to do something while we have a kind of man advantage on that top side, and they're just going to try to get out. They're going to just try to do the ultimate heist, try to get away from it, but they lose positioning in the mid lane, and now Divine Ascension Obsidian, or sorry, Death Cards Academy is going to be able to pick up that mid lane outer, or that mid lane inner tower, funneling more gold into Patrick Jones, and he has picked up the QSS. Ladies and gentlemen, he has paid the QSS tax, and now he is unCCable. He won't be able to get locked down, and that kill ultimate will be huge in these big sprawling team fights, and he is getting to that point where it gets scarier and scarier, because again, he's going to be able to go into the side lanes, just farm up, and he will become such a massive win condition for the side of Death Cards Academy, even if they're not able to pick up that 4th Cloud Soul Dragon.
Definitely interested as to why he purchased that QSS, as I'm considering why Karma couldn't just buy the Crucible on the 2nd item instead, as it is probably a lot more gold efficient for their team. And as I'm talking, Sterling is going to potentially find a fight over the Krugs, but it was not going to turn into anything there, as Sejuani could look for a pick onto Fugnuggler in the mid lane.
So I believe the Crucible doesn't cleanse the Malzahar ulti, so I think that's going to be the big thing. Obviously, I do think that Fug should probably pick up the Mikhails as the 2nd item, just so you can cleanse off that Sejuani ulti or any of the Nautilus lockdown CC. Again, a lot of fights around the mid lane, but it doesn't look like there's anything. But Ooh for Cthulhu just says, no, we're going to look for a fight.
He is going to land that hook onto the Nautilus, but there is no CC follow. He's able to find the kill onto the Nautilus, but he does give his own shutdown over to the Malzahar, and Sterling Archer is here to continue this fight. Patrick Jones, like you were saying, doing so much damage on this kill, keeping Sterling alive even through his own ultimate, finding these extra CC onto Risky, onto Saturation. There's no more Divine Ascension Obsidian left on this map other than Saturation, as he just has to run back to his own base.
And Sterling Archer and Patrick Jones, it feels like they're just a dynamic duo, just alley-ooping and dunking it onto Divine Ascension Obsidian, because during that entire play, Gallagher wasn't even participating. Ooh for Cthulhu had traded 1-for-1 with just Joshing, so it was just a 4v3, and they come up heads for the side of Death Cards Academy. They already have a 9,000 gold lead, and it feels like they're just kind of putting the final nails into the coffin. Again, I don't want to call it preemptively, but there's such a massive gold lead. There's such a massive scaling advantage for the side of Death Cards Academy. Unless we have a miracle team fight, it is just Death Cards Academy heads up every single play.
And I mean, if Patrick Jones does find the recall right here, he is sitting with 2,500 gold in his pocket. That is definitely more than enough to purchase his mythic item, which he still doesn't have, but he does have, 1.5 items in his inventory at the moment. And it does look like he's actually probably going to find a 1v1 onto Water, as he does do way more damage than he does on this Kale Pig at the moment. And Water realizes this and tries to run away, but it's not going to be fast enough. Never mind, that's going to be the shutdown from Kale going over to Water.
Hey, Patrick Jones in the mid lane, meet Water doing with his Garen hyper pick. What a 1v1 from Water, kind of redeeming himself for all of the solo deaths he's got from Fugnuggler. But again, the big thing and the reason that these plays are so prominent as just gets a pick.
Sterling trying to find the last hit onto Risky, but he's immediately stopped by the Malzahar ultimate. Galki finding that glass auto that he really needs. Sterling trying to go in even more, but he is stopped once again by that Sejuani ultimate as well. And he just keeps trying to go in and keeps trying to get stopped by these team fight ultimates here. Water trying to do anything he can, but is forced to flash away. And this is going to be the inhibitor tower going down from this fine Ascension Obsidian's base. There's a TP coming down as well from Patrick Jones, potentially taking this in hit, but it doesn't look like that this is going to be the game-ending push.
And it's the perfect situation for the side of Death Cards Academy. They pick up the fight in the mid lane, and these fights are so spread out that nobody can really cover for Risky. He's just getting assassinated by either Gallagher or Sterling or just anybody in that back line. And with these big sprawling team fights, it's just heads for Death Cards Academy over and over again. And the big thing is Cloud Soul is up in 25 seconds, so we will see another fight. But the big key cooldowns are not up. There is no Sejuani ulti, there is no Malzahar ulti, and Patrick Jones has his Kale ultimate up. There's Ooze ulti, which should be up in a quick second, and Sterling has that big Xin Zhao ultimate. So right now, it is set up for Death Cards Academy to win, and it feels like just desperation play for the side of Divine Ascension Obsidian, and they're just going to look for another fight.
They do find that hook onto Saturation, but you are not able to kill him very easily. Sterling going in, but doesn't get to live for very long, as he is forced to run away. Saturation taking so much damage from Gallagher. That's going to be the hook landing onto the Kale, but unfortunately no follow-up as Pike finally finds his ultimate into the backline to find a double kill. Risky trying to do anything while his team is just dying all around him, but he's not going to find anything. Triple kill going over for Cthulhu, as he just finds the 1v3 in the backline as his team finds the rest of the team. This looks like it's going to be game 3 going over to Death Cards Academy, finding the clean 3-0 against Divine Ascension Obsidian for tonight's game.
Ooh, for Cthulhu comes up big. Dunk after dunk after dunk after dunk. You see a Pike solo kill your mid laner, and it's just demoralizing. And at 24 minutes in, Death Cards Academy are going to pick up the 3-0. I think, unless they want to contest, I think the Kale should just be strong enough to end this game out. But yes, it's going to be 23 minutes in, and Death Cards Academy pick up the 3-0 with a dominant Game 3 performance with a 11,000 gold lead. Everything went their way. It felt like that they just had control from minute number 3 to minute number 23. And what a game from Death Cards Academy, finalizing that 3-0 over Divine Ascension Obsidian.
Death Cards finding that game 1 victory, 29 minutes, game 2 victory, 26, game 3, 23. So every time improving just a little bit, finding those extra leads that they needed to close that game out just a little bit faster. Every individual player playing so well from both teams, really, but Death Cards Academy was able to find those successful victories tonight.
Yeah, they pick up the victory. They kind of move up into that upper tier. And again, from listening to Fugnuggler in his interview, he's talked about he wants to break into that upper echelon of teams. He doesn't want to be sitting in the middle of the track. He wants to face versus the CB Rushes, the Fevers, the No Fear Wolves of the world. And this is kind of a dominant game performance to say, here I am, Fugnuggler, here's my team, and we're looking for that cup in this summer split. But again, great game from Death Cards Academy, but there were signs of life from Divine Ascension Obsidian. And to break down that game number 3, we will be turning it back over to Icarus and Mac Dewey. Take it away, guys.
Icarus, as you were saying before, Death Cards Academy no longer a wild card team. They finally found the right flavor to pull off a win here in game number 3, their first 3-0 of the season. What are your big takeaways for the squad after this series? Are you pushing them for playoffs now?
I think they're playoff team. I don't know if they're finalist teams just quite yet, but I do think they're going to be one of those top 6 teams that we can see coming in here. You said it yourself. Gunjan mentioned it. I've been saying it for a couple of weeks now. Death Cards Academy flying under the radar for a lot of viewers. And they showed up really big today with their first 3-0 victory.
I want to point out during that last game, the insane synergy between these guys, knowing when to take fights, knowing when to call the teleports down to the bot lane, knowing they can be aggressive. Sterling and Patrick, the dynamic duo Gunjan mentioned during the cast, absolutely popping off, making sure that the Xin Zhao stays alive through these absolutely crazy fights. In Icarus, for just a moment, can we put a spotlight on the Cthulhu Pike gameplay? He's 5-1 on the champion now throughout this season, and I think he showed us why, especially in that match.
Yeah, we had a little bit of a conversation off screens here saying, you know, this is a really tough lane for DCA because Kaisa Pike, one of them gets hooked by Nautilus, the lane's just kind of over, but Cthulhu put in so much work on this Pike, constantly dodging away from those stretch lines, and we saw that he baited a regank during the early stages of this game that caused for DCA to get so far ahead in the early game here, and off the back of that, we saw Sterling Archer have a pop-off game, which allowed for Patrick Jones to have a pop-off game, and then Cthulhu comes back with the triple kill at the very end, claiming what is rightfully his. That pop-off performance, the triple kill at that last dragon to round it all out.
Do want to also throw a shout out for that Game 3 performance. Fugnuggler on the Karma, just helping keep everyone alive while holding down the fort against What Are You Doing in the top lane, looking potentially at the other side of the coin for this show match series. Icarus, real quick before our post-game interview, Divine Ascension Obsidian having some substitutes come in, struggling a little bit to find their mojo, but I really do think we saw some solid glimpses of potential from some of the players in this series. Void Risky doing a pretty solid job. Saturation on the Nautilus jungle in game number 1, I think, did a really solid job. Who stood out to you from that squad in this series?
I really do have to give it a Risky. I saw some slick movements in him, out of him, especially in that final game on this vein. He got a couple of cheeky tumble dodges away from the opponent and had a few really close outplays if he wasn't outnumbered 3-1 at the times that he was taking these fights. So I really want to keep an eye on the AD carry and the rest of the Divine Ascension Obsidian, because I do think they have potential. They have a lot going for them, but you have to keep in mind, they're coming up from Light League. They're punching a little bit out of their weight here, and for considering that they just fought in the Gold League and now moving up to Plat League, they're putting up a really good performance and doing a fantastic job of holding their own. Although their scoreboard might not reflect it, we saw in these games that they do have a lot going for them, that they have a strong roster. They just need to work on maybe a little bit of the early game so that they can find themselves leads and not fall so far behind.
Exactly. Death Cards Academy throughout the series, I don't think really Divine Ascension Obsidian, excuse me, picked up a dragon at all. I think it was like 12-0.
They got one in the first game.
They got 12-1 for dragons. Not ideal for a block 3 series if you're wanting to push for that playoff mark. Again, Death Cards Academy coming up 3-0 for the week 5 show match. Cam and Gunjan are ready for the post-game interview. They are joined by the one and only Sterling Arching, the jungler for Death Cards Academy. Xin Zhao, the last game, popped off with Diana in game 1 and game 2. Let's hear from our casters in the post-game interviewee.